Hi everyone, welcome to this four-part series. My name's Sebastian Caruso. I'm from SP Solutions. I'm going to be taking all of you through basically all the government initiatives, both at a state and federal level, that have been released in the last 2, 3, 4 weeks regarding COVID-19 and the impact that it may well have on the industry. At the moment, you guys are fairly protected. We're hoping it stays that way. Construction accounts for 16, 17% of the Victorian economy, right? So they're going to do everything they can to try and avoid it, and it looks like it may go that way now. Hopefully that things are improving and we are flattening the curve. So basically, I've been asked by both Master Plumbers and NECA to prepare something that was specifically targeted to contracting businesses. So just by way of introduction, very quickly, our firm and myself, you would have potentially seen me present at a series of events on behalf of both associations, ranging from running workshops to, keynote speaking at some of the Master Plumbers breakfasts and the NECA Young Leaders Forum. Our firm is very heavily steeped in trade-based businesses. It's just our natural bend. I grew up around blue collars my whole life, except I chose the white. But I know you guys, in terms of the way your businesses run, very, very well. And the rules here are going to be applicable, or as applicable, for whether you've got 5 people, 3 people, 100 people, right? And ranging all across that spectre. So we'll get into it. What we're going to do is, the first session today is going to be around cash is king. And by cash is king, we're going to go through basically anything to do with cash flow and what the government has introduced to support you through and get everyone to the other side, right? And to be honest, I've been in the industry for 13 years, and I don't think I'm ever going to see these things happen again in my lifetime. I hope not. But particularly for a Liberal coalition government to spend the amount of money that they have would make them feel incredibly uncomfortable. But they've done a lot of good things in a very short amount of time. So we'll get into it. So the first one, like I said, is going to be Cash is King, part 1. And then we're going to have Cash is King, part 2. And that'll be another little bite we'll put together, retaining your team and everything around people, and in particular the JobKeeper subsidies. And then we'll probably do it on Friday. We're thinking we do a bit of a live Q&A with a chat function. I'm going to be leaning on the girls from both associations to help me in terms of technically, but we'll give it our best shot. And even if we spend half an hour to an hour with each association, at least then you guys get to ask any relevant questions. Okay, so cash is king. All right. So the first one that they announced was boosting cash flow for employers. So initially they had suggested that they were going to give a total of 50K as credit through the BASs. And it was going to be 25 this side of June and 25 on the other side of June. What they've decided to do now is basically offer 100 grand for all employers that are affected. And like I said before, irrespective of your size, you should be able to make the most of this, right? I would encourage you all, and I know a lot of accountants wouldn't be making contact with their clients, unfortunately. It's just not standard in the industry. So we, just as a way of background, so we basically spent the last 2-3 weeks calling almost every single client on our book and getting them to understand. So we basically did what we're doing now on this series. We did with them one-on-one individually, right? So that they really understood the nuts and bolts of how they could use it for them. So I'd encourage you that you're going to need to get someone's help with this, I would have thought, whether that be your bookkeeper, whether it be your accountant, right? whether it be your wife and she does a bit of reading on the internet and you get her to do it. But someone's going to probably have to help you with this. Effectively, what it is, though, is you get $50,000 worth of PAYG credits. So it's not cash. This ain't a refund, this one. This is just going to be basically credits against your, let's call it for sake of a better term, your GST PAYG account, right? Accountants know it as the integrated client account. So basically lodge a BAS in March, and let's say the number was 60K total. 40K of that was GST and 20K of that was PAYG. Basically what will happen is you'll basically get all your PAYG. So that 20 will be credited in that particular BAS in the March quarter, which means you won't pay the PAYG, right? However, what they are going to do, just to make it clear, is everyone can access it. So if in that March BAS, the PAYG was 20 grand, what they're going to do is, if you're a quarterly reporter, right, sorry, a monthly reporter, they're going to times that number by 3 on the assumption that you've paid similar amounts in Jan and Feb. So that'd basically work out to a 60K credit against the BAS. And like I said before, a $60,000 payment, you're entitled to 50K worth of credit, means your final payment will be about 10 grand, right? And then that'll be it for you until July. And then the same thing repeats and happens again, right? If you don't use the full 50 in the March quarter and we use 20, then it'll go April 10, May 10, June 10, right? So again, the payments are tax-free. They're not cash. They are purely credits. And again, I'd encourage you to speak to your accountants or tax agents or bookkeepers about utilizing and getting the most out of it. There may be opportunity as well for, wage sharing, increasing of wages to, I guess we've got to play within the rules, but there might be opportunity there to actually bump it up so that you get the full maximum benefit of it. Again, I don't think this will ever come back ever again. Okay. This one here is a government loan. They're calling it the SME guarantee scheme. So I know this one here would have got a lot of attention out in the world, particularly in the tradie world. What it is, you have the ability to go to your bank. They have basically gone into bed with the bank and basically allowed them to issue loans up to 250 grand for the right business, where the Commonwealth government will guarantee half, which sounds ludicrous, but that's what's going to happen. And the other half is to be guaranteed by the director of the company, or whether you're a sole trader, basically a personal guarantee, but you don't have to put property up to support it, right? In terms of equity in a property or a term deposit, it's going to be a purely unsecured debt, right? I know as of last week, we deal with a lot of banks and a lot of senior bankers, and as you can appreciate, the first 2 weeks, they were chasing their tail from when this was announced. The government sprung it on them, and they've been trying to catch up ever since, right? So you can appreciate they've had God knows how many businesses actually apply for it for different amounts, whether it be 50, 100, 200, 250 max. But they didn't have the system set up ready to go. They were struggling as to how they were going to actually document the government guarantee. It appears as though as of late last week, a couple of banks had already started now approving. But it will take a while. So basically the only other things to mention with this loan is there's a 6-month loan repayment holiday. So just to be clear, because there's a bit of confusion out there, it's not interest free. It's basically going to be a loan repayment, but they will capitalize the interest and make you pay it moving forward. But you don't have to pay in the first 6 months as you get your business up off the ground, right? And it's a 3-year payback period. So just to be very clear, you get the 6-month loan holiday, and then you got a 3-year payback period. So what we've been instructing our clients to do is, if you want to go for it, go for it. They still may ask for ATO portals, right, and ATO balances to make sure that you're not in an arrangement with the tax office. And if you are, I'm not sure how they're going to deal with that yet, because I haven't heard of enough cases where it's happened, right? But in saying that, the advice we've given to our client base is, if you feel like you need to go for it, go for it. And the reason we say that is, if you're disciplined enough to take the money, set up another account, dip it in there, put it in as cash, and call it break in case of emergency, right? The only reason I say that is construction hasn't been impacted as heavily as others just yet. But if it does hit, you guys are very vulnerable, right? Particularly when we don't know how long this thing's actually going to go for, and whether that be EBA sites or non, right? And whether you're doing service or whether you're doing construction, who else are we going to have out there? Doing government contracts, water board work. I mean, budgets are going to tighten up a lot now, both private and public, right? Government money. So we just got to make sure that we're prepared and ready for the worst outcome. So the only caveat I put on it is you've got to be disciplined enough not to touch it, and it's only there in the case of absolute emergency, right? Might just do one more around cash. Basically, what this one is, and this one here, guys, really, really concerns me with your industry. If you do any work for residential or commercial builders, again, EBA or non, and that's plumbing and electrical, you guys are the licensed trades and they always need you, right? So they'll make you hang around. So what the government has done, if you go and do a job for someone, and let's say it costs, you know, in normal circumstances, it's a $5,000 job if you're doing a service job, or a, you know, or a $200,000 contract if you're doing a construction, and so on, right? What they're basically, in normal terms, what happens is, if the creditor, if they don't pay you, pardon me, within over like 2 months, right? And we've gone debt collecting, we've sent the legal letters, we've done everything we can, we've made the nasty phone call, and they still don't pay. The one thing that you hold over a builder is that you can issue what they call a statutory demand. And a statutory demand is basically where any invoice over $2,000, you can then issue them with a stat demand, and the builder's got 21 days, not just builders, anyone, but I'm just using that as the example. They've got 21 days to reply to your stat demand through their solicitor. If they don't, you can then have the ability to basically issue writs, go to start the court proceedings to wind them up, right? So that's the last stick we've got. Now, what the government has done, and I understand why, but it's really could impact you guys, is they're basically saying the invoice doesn't have to be maximum of 2, it's got to be a maximum of 20, and 21 days has become 6 months, which effectively means if you do work for a new builder, and again, I'll be fairly blunt, whether it be a resi or commercial, or it could be someone that you've done some work for in the past, but they weren't a good payer, we've got to be really careful, guys, right? Because if they're getting any advice, right, and they're actually listening to it, there's an argument here that they really don't need to pay your invoice for up to 6 months. And no matter how much you scream, if they've got the right advice, right, there's going to be every chance that that we don't get paid. We'll get paid for a long time. We will get paid eventually, hopefully, but they can stretch it right out, right? My other fear is that a lot of them stretch it and then go wind up the company in, you know, the last 4 weeks of that 6 month period. We might have a fair few liquidations and guys rising up again after that date ends. And the argument would be, well, I had to close down because I couldn't carry the debt. And right, so I'm very fearful of this one for large, medium, even small contractors operating in trade in the construction space, right? And the licensed trades in particular, which covers both sets of guys listening in. That'll be it for today. I'm going to record the other 3 and we'll release them over the next few days just to keep it coming quick and fast, because that's the way the world's working at the moment. A lot of the ones all of the ones that I've detailed today have all been passed through Parliament, and they're actual law now, right? They've got approval. I'll let you know as we go forward whether any of them have not, or we're still waiting on further info. But the ones there that we've just spoken about, law and are in place effective, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I will speak to you guys in session 2. Thanks for listening.